apologies about that. For some reason I clicked the wrong audio thing on. Anyway, I shall pick that up again. So, yeah, that was the AJ Helo review, and tonight I'll be answering most of your questions about live streaming with the Helo, with the web presenter, maybe some of the setup and what have you that we have here as well. Now, I've got some of the questions that you guys have been asking in front of me. I'm going to try and get through those, but if there are any others, please do let me know. And thank you, Satinder, for watching through the first bit. Right, let's get cracking. So the AJ Helo, as we saw it in review there, is what we're using tonight. And I'll give you a brief overview of the setup here. So we're in what looks like a bit of a dingy dark room, but this is actually our gallery here. So the studio is downstairs behind that wall, but in here is where we run the whole thing from. So by way of a bit of an explanation of how we get to this point, you guys are a Sony EX1, which I've just piped directly into the back of a Blackmagic ATEM2 ME switcher. That's piped out through the gallery monitors, which you should just about see the ME2 of, and there's an ME1 sat there. So currently plugged into this is the Hyperdeck, a MacBook, and one camera. The plan was to have two cameras, but interestingly, it's so hot up here at the moment, we've got a bit of a heating issue on the ME2. And as such, you might notice this screen here flickering around as it loses network, which is not ideal. Anyway, we've got some new fans coming tomorrow, and that should be good on that front. So cameras running into the ATEM. We have an audio desk next to it. For today, I haven't run this sound or the sound that you heard previously through the desk. That is running straight through the ATEM itself, i.e. this is plugged directly into the camera, and the sound for the video you've just seen was piped down via SDI. So it's a really simple setup. I'm not going to be using any supers tonight as I'm in the gallery by myself. Ordinarily, when we're down in the studio, we have gallery operators up here and or editors elsewhere, etc. So that being the case, we've got a pretty simple operation up here at the moment, but is probably akin to if you're a gamer or want to get into live vlogging, and it's using the same equipment that Has of Worship, even mid-range broadcasters would be using as well. So most of this stuff that we choose to use is relatively affordable, and by the standards of what it was a few years ago, it's very affordable. Anyhow, live streaming. So once however you guys figure to do it, you can either plug a camera directly straight into any of these devices or an Xbox or whatever it might be, or you can run the sort of system that I'm running. So there are a few things that are important to me when live streaming. Obviously, picture quality and audio quality are the main things, and then things like sync and just being able to get to your viewer in a reliable fashion. So there are a whole bunch of different products out there for that. The Teradek Video, the live stream top broadcaster thing, NewTek do various different ones. The AJ Helo is fairly new, as is the web presenter as well, but they all do much of a muchness. So on the Helo, let's get some of these questions answered before I waffle on for far too long. So, Desire Sam asked, how long does it take for the Helo to boot up and be ready to stream? Well, that's a pretty good question, and in truth, I haven't timed it, but we have switched it on alongside getting other things ready, and what we can say is it's less than 10 seconds. The thing will power up, or the unit will power up within 5 or 6 seconds. You don't need to wait for it to come up with a boot. Well, there isn't a boot screen or anything. But if you hit the stream button, it will start working straight away. Of course, the lag on YouTube means that it's actually another 10 seconds or so before it gets to air. That being the case, it works pretty well straight away. Incidentally, the web presenter more or less does as well, once you've set up the computer end of it. So boot times wouldn't be an issue, I wouldn't have thought. Certainly, if you have to lean under the table to switch the unit on, by the time you've sat back down, it's certainly ready to go. Film Gecko has made all sorts of different points. Is there an option to have an HDMI monitor output with an overlay of status information? No, quite simply. The HDMI output is a reference feed. Well, it's kind of a loop through, but it is processed. There is no option to overlay anything onto it. If you wanted to overlay stuff that would go out for the viewer, then that would be via something like this ATEM system that we've got up here. But for all status, let's have a look and see if we can bring it up on this screen. We have, and I'm not sure if you can see it all that well there, but this is the web interface for the Helo, which tells us the status all the time. So right now, as I speak, we're bringing 1080 in through the Vision Mixer, and we are outputting at 720 50 at H.264. I won't bore you with all the stats. Long story short, the lights are green, it's good to go. I'm not recording this particular one, YouTube will record it for me, so there's no real need for that. This is not a definite breaker. Scheduling would mean the church, yes. Well, I mentioned about scheduling previously. He's asking about adding the overlays as a firmware update. I don't think that will be possible. I'm not sure why you would want it to be. Really what you would need, or for what Film Gecko is after, is actually a separate HDMI out, because you might want to record the HDMI out that it gives you, as well as the recording on there. Anyway, I will move on. Does it support both SDI and HDMI, and what is the level of the SDI out? The level of the SDI out is exactly what you put into it. It is a straight loop out, and yes, it supports 3G SDI and 1080-60, which I think is HDMI 2.1 or something, in terms of those. Can it stream simultaneously via SDMI, via both connections? No, it can't. The Blackmagic web presenter, which I think is what Martin Liebel here is trying to get at, can actually switch between its SDI and HDMI inputs. Now, I've tried this, and it can do it, but if you have different signals or anything different about the HDMI and the SDI signal, which intrinsically you probably will have, then it will glitch as you switch between what would be effectively camera 1 and camera 2. I haven't managed to, aside from plugging in two computers and having them manually set up with the signal that I want, to get two different devices that do switch between them. So I've not found that to be the most useful way. However, if you really needed to, it'll get you out of a bit of a jiff. The Helo, it has two inputs, but you're using one at a time. It's really there just so you don't have to buy an adapter on the back of it. So that answers that one. Martin Liebel also says he's currently using a video, so he thinks he's not going to like the Helo product because there's no ability to connect to it via Wi-Fi. No, there isn't. And in truth, we've been looking out for stuff, and we will only buy things that are hardwired. Where you're in a studio environment like this, or if you're maybe even at home, you would probably want something that is hardwired in. You're reducing the amount of gaps that need to be bridged for something to go wrong. So here, both these products are actually plumbed straight into the switch, which goes more or less straight out of the building. That's really useful for us, and it's another headache that we don't have to have. The bit rate on these two devices, as well, the bit rate on this one in particular is quite a bit higher than is available on other devices. So this will encode up to 50 megabits in a H.264 codec up to 1080p, which I think is, it's broadcast, that's more than adequate. The web presenter doesn't record at all. You would record via OBS or your streaming software there. Incidentally, the way that we do it here, we have it running into then a HyperDeck Mini. So in certain circumstances, like now, I've not got any cards in it, but we can go ahead and hit record, and it will record into ProRes. But again, that's another set of expense. What else do we have? Let's have a look. Okay, so that's more or less it for the main questions at the moment. Somebody's asking me some more church-related questions there. I'll come back to that another time. But in short, there are many live streaming products out there at the moment, and there are some like the Hopage products which are quite affordable. They're very good, particularly if you are into console gaming and you want to stream that, because they really don't have very many settings. You literally just plug them in and they go. Where things like the AGA Helo really come into their own is if you're sort of the next level up. So maybe you already have a small vision mix system, or maybe you've got a camera and a bit of software that you're going to be switching between, or podcasting. Something like the Helo is really a fit and forget thing. It does take just a very small amount of setting up, but once you've done that, there is nothing else you need to do. You come along, plug it in, you press the stream button. I keep going to press that. I'm going to cut you guys off. But anyway, and or the record button, and it's away. It'll remember your last settings. The biggest headache we had in this is actually on YouTube when we schedule events. It has different user codes. So you literally just go back in and enter that user code and or the passkey, and you are away. So I found that to be very useful. The other thing that it does do, which is, it's not rare, but certain other manufacturers' streaming devices don't do this, where the Helo will take in PAL and NTSC frame rates and pump out PAL and NTSC frame rates. If you take something like the Blackmagic Web Presenter, which is very good in terms of what you can put into it, and in fact you can go, I think you can go 6G SDI into that, but it only pumps out 720p at 30, which is, for us over here, is fairly limiting because I could switch all the cameras to 30 frames, but at that stage I've got an issue with lights flickering and screens flickering, so on and so forth. So that's, I'm expecting and hoping that from Blackmagic Design that will be a firmware update, so we can at least have 25 and 30 frames a second. At the moment, that 30 frames is a bit of a limitation. In terms of the way that both of them connect, as we already know, this one connects directly to a switch. The web presenter will connect via a laptop or a PC to the switch. So we have here, that just says it's effectively USB, well, it is a USB 2 cable, and ends up being a webcam on here. So that works quite well as well. Now, the beauty with these live streaming products is once you've got them, they do get out of the way and let you crack on with whatever else it was you wanted to do. So, for example, here, though this isn't the most polished show, you'll see there are lots of things that I can do which I might not ordinarily be able to do. So off camera for you guys, but there for me, is a screen with all of the stats on. I've got the chat windows, your previous comments, and all the rest of the data. As well as that, I have the control panel for controlling the Helo and the Vision Mixer. So it is reasonable now for me to be able to do something by myself and cut in and out between VTs without having to worry too much about the streaming end of it. I also really prefer the fact that the streaming element of it is separated from the rest of the hardware. So, and what I mean by that is there are products out there such as the Livestream Studio software and the Livestream HD 51, 550, so on and so forth. Those have more or less all of this built into one box. There are some limitations, but they're a really good product. However, the streaming key is right next to other keys that you're constantly going to be using. Here, if I'm beavering away in the gallery, or I have a gallery operator who's using talkback and directing and all the rest of it, he couldn't accidentally cut out the stream. Whereas on other products, you can, and that does worry me a bit sometimes. So this is here just for show. Well, admittedly, I haven't tidied it up very much, but it's there for you guys to see. And in reality, it would end up back in that case. You can't get to it by accident. For me, that is a big plus. I think I'd love to hear what you guys, I can't see, well, I can see a low res version of the stream at the moment, but things like audio quality, how that's coming through to you, picture quality, what are your thoughts and feedback on it? And whilst you're there, do you have any other questions for me at the same time? I'm going to hang around for a little while longer, and in the interim, I think I'll just let you know a couple of things that we've been up to and why we ended up with all of this stuff and what else we're doing. So at the moment, I've recently got back from LA again, where we went to the Cinegear show. And we are currently in the process of fitting out another 2 studios. Some guys who conduct their business here on YouTube. They've got a really interesting idea whereby they are going out and effectively doing YouTube marketing for CNC machining companies. Pretty niche, but it's really working out for them. They have recently graduated to a studio, but they have 3 cameras all recording. They offload all 3 cameras into Premiere, cut it about, and it takes a long time to get their videos up. So they are taking the leap into going live. What we've recommended for them is the Blackmagic Design 8M TV Studio Pro. So they've got 3 cameras and they want to put a bit of overlays on there. That seems to be about the most cost-effective way for them to operate. They'll also use then a Hyperdeck Mini as a media player and another one as a recorder. They'll throw the web presenter in there, and hey presto, for not a lot of money, they've got a full studio setup, which will work really well. On the flip side, we're looking to move a broadcast TV channel from one place to another, and they're going to upgrade some of the stuff along the way. So they will use a very similar setup to what we're using here. They're currently on the 8M 1ME switches. They'll move up to a 2ME switcher. And and this is the thing I like about the Blackmagic Design switches, is that the third-party environment for them is pretty healthy. They use some software called Casper CG. If you haven't heard of that, do give it a Google. It's a Swedish company who decided to write their own playout system a number of years ago, and it can do a hell of a lot for you. If you're into live streaming or just starting out and you're a bit of a geek, then I would really recommend heading over to Casper CG afterwards and taking a look at what they're doing. Those units, the software itself is all open source and free, and there's a lot of support from the community out there. But what it can do for you is play out all of your media. And depending on your hardware setup, it can play 5 or 6 media channels out for you. It requires a relative, well, if you've got an editing machine, that should be powerful enough to run Casper CG. That's good. In terms of other things, well, whilst we're on the subject of stuff for free, live streaming, if you haven't come across OBS, which is Open Broadcaster Software, that is also well worth having. That actually, they've added quite a bit of extra control into OBS now. The software itself is available for Mac, Linux, and Windows. And all it's really doing is taking in whatever video signal. Maybe it's the webcam on top of the computer itself. Maybe you've got, as we have here, slightly fancier setup. It will take it all, and you can create picture-in-picture. So if you imagine that gaming setup, full screen of a computer game and yourself in the corner. You can achieve that via OBS, and they keep updating it at a fairly regular rate. So that's well worth having a look into as well. There are various different software, vision mixing and live streaming setups out there at the moment. But what I wanted to bring you guys was a more of an industry view. This isn't high end. You could be spending thousands and thousands on live streaming units. However, you're after something fairly simple. You want to take this kind of a video signal and just change the numbers around a bit so it can be seen across the internet. And I don't think that's too much of an ask. Well, it is too much of an ask when you're asking £10,000 for these streaming devices, which some people are. There are certain differences. In the main, if you're streaming out online, you probably wouldn't notice the difference. And in truth, I don't notice the difference. Right, let's have a look. What other questions have we got? So, there's a couple more coming in. Boot time, we have done that one. Okay, recording. So you will need, well, in terms of the recording onto the AJA Helo, you can record using a USB stick and or an SD card. Now, the USB stick, I will just say, you know when you go to a trade show or somewhere and they give you out USB sticks with all the press bump on or whatever else or catalogue on it, those generally are incredibly slow, and not all USB sticks are the same, but you probably know this. I've tried a few different ones on there, and maybe 6 or 7 of them, and most of them worked. A couple of them didn't, and it did throw up an error to say there was an underrun issue. Basically, you need a USB stick, much like you would an SD card and a camera, that will just take the write speeds of whatever you're writing to. SD card wise, anything class 10 and above will be absolutely fine. If you want to record something and save a bit of space, you could record at the sort of quality that you're watching at now. So this is 720p 50, I think. And this is going out at 4 megabits. So if you wanted a slightly better quality version of this, go to 6 megabits and you could get away with a class 4 card on that. It really doesn't require anything much more special than that. I believe that it will also, on the USB storage, write directly to hard drives. I do know, however, that if you have something like these bus-powered hard drives, that the unit doesn't have enough power to power those. So an external, some of them, in fact neither of these, have power supplies on them, but you take something like the 3.5-inch desktop drive and that will record onto there quite well. So in fact, if you're doing an all-nighter, you might find that recording to a 3.5-inch hard drive might be the best way of doing it. Let's have a look. What else have we got? So storage, I've just answered that one. Can you record and stream simultaneously? Yes, you can. You can actually, if you do it via the software, you can just hit one button that will switch recording and streaming on at the same time. Failing that, on the unit, one good thumb can cross over both buttons and start them streaming at the same time as well. What else have we got? Okay. Oh, I didn't realise you were there, Film Gecko. For some reason, my chat window had packed up on there. So, well, thank you for watching. Satinder is still there as well. No audio. I assume that audio fixed. Well, you know what? I'm going to go back and explain the audio thing that I did initially. And it's a stupid thing, but I'm going to let you know. So, the routing of this system comes from the camera to the ATEM, through the ATEM, out into a Blackmagic HyperDeck Studio Mini, loops out of there into a Blackmagic web presenter, it loops out of there into the AJA Helo. The reason I do that is because I will want to record ISOs onto the HyperDeck, and the best way of doing that is taking the main out into there and then I can hit record. Unfortunately, what I did, and it showed up on the ATEM control surface, was I'd switched to the audio of that, so we ended up with a crazy loop. But thank you for bearing with me whilst I got through that. What I should have done was just taken another couple of seconds and switched the right channel on. Alas, here we are. Other questions? Web presenter audio syncing issues. Now, it's fair to say, and I really like Blackmagic stuff. I'm not paid by them, but I do have a good relationship with some of the guys at Blackmagic over here in Europe. When the web presenter was released, I don't think they'd say it was out of the question, so they probably released it a little bit too early. It could have done with 1 or 2 extra firmware updates on the way. Alas, now I'm finding the firmware is pretty robust. I'm not finding the audio sync issues that I had, though looking around online, I see that some people are. Whether their firmware is out of date, I don't know. Some people are finding signal drift, which can happen by the way packets are delivered to the web, that audio can drop out of sync. But in the main, using the web presenter through OBS and even through Skype where we've tested it, we're actually finding that works pretty well now, aside from the 30 frames issue that we talk about. But it's a very robust product, and with the front panel, it really does make quite a difference to have the audio meters and the a bit of a preview of what you're looking at here. So in the main, most of the things, or certainly the bugs in the web presenter, I would confidently say are pretty well gone now. And that streams more or less to any platform you could want, because it just acts as a webcam. Where you take something like the AJA Helo, which is in many ways stronger. I mean, it goes up to 1080p 60, but you have to wait for AJA or another company to create the interface to be able to stream to things like Facebook and what have you. So at present, the AJA Helo does not stream to Facebook. However, they have been really thick and fast with their updates, and the 1.1 updates or the 1.1 firmware that they've tried is that we've tried, that they've developed, is more or less ready. I can't show it to you just yet, but that does work with Facebook, and it works very well. So in the main, I can't think of much else that you could complain about on that front. But the web presenter, to answer the question, is more or less ready now. And actually, in the recent update, I'm really impressed that you can start to use more of the controls on the front. As it stood previously, most of the buttons on the front didn't do anything. Well, they do now, and that's really good. What else might we want to know about this? Streaming via... So at the moment, we're streaming directly from my studio to you guys on the web, but there are lots of different times where you might want to stream in a collaborative fashion. So I'm looking at you, Satinder. If you have got a live stream that you want to do and you want to collaborate with me, then there aren't many options to do that. The Google Hangout will do it, but it's a bit clunky. These devices end up being a really nice way of doing that now, particularly if you use them in partnership with Skype, so you can put your professional cameras into there. And recently, and over the next few weeks, we're looking to do some collaborations with people whereby we will be using our encoders to effectively have a real-time conversation and do some interesting things. So do look out for those. I'm being asked, and this isn't the first time I've had this question, which is better, the AGA Helo or the web presenter? In truth, oh gosh, I don't know. The web presenter is cheaper than the AGA Helo and does what it says on the tin. The AGA Helo is cheaper than most of its other competitors, but more expensive than the web presenter. Of course, it does have better encoding facilities. It's a self-contained box, doesn't need anything else. If I'm entirely honest, for me, the AGA Helo is a much more rounded unit. But the web presenter is designed for a slightly different person. The AGA Helo can go straight into a professional working outfit. The web presenter, it could, but I'm thinking more of YouTubers, hobbyists, and sort of high-end enthusiasts. What else have we got? Thank you, Film Gecko, for being impressed with the picture quality. You know what? I'm going to have a look at this picture quality as well. I've been trying to save my bandwidth here, but I don't really need to. Oh, gosh, I am handsome, aren't I? Anyway, I think the questions have more or less dried up now, so unless that's it, I will start to sign off. Thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe. If you have any other questions, this Thursday will become a regular live streaming slot, and I'm going to try and up my game with it a bit, make it a bit more interesting. We'll bring some more cameras in and do something a bit better. But for the first Thursday edition of this, many thanks for watching. Please do subscribe, share, comment below, and I think that'll do for now. Let's figure out how to turn this thing off. Oh yeah, I could just press the button.